Hello and welcome to this video. This is Tim and we're on the rapid road to improval facing Danny. Similar rating to me. We're gonna follow with d5 and we have an immediate bishop f4, which I don't know what the name of this is. I think knight f6 is fine. I think e6 is fine. c6 is probably fine. Let's keep things simple and play knight f6. Most likely we're going to be playing something like e6 and bishop d6 to challenge the bishop. This might transpose into a queen's gambit type of opening. Yeah, so the idea for white now is to play, if bishop d6, you can play knight e5. But I think that's fine, so I think that's okay. We're going to probably play c6 here. Okay, so white just moves the bishop back. I think here c6 should be fine. b6 is another idea. Let's go with b6 here. I don't know if that's right, but let's give it a whirl. Okay, bishop d3, pressurizing h7. And what we want to do is play c5. Can we play c5 here? I'm going to go for it. I don't know if it's good or not. Of course, this makes the bishop lose. We can push on with c4, but I don't like that as much as queen c7. And I don't really want to make things easy for white to build up a kingside attack by fixing the pawn structure just yet. I want to leave open this option of playing cd here. So let's see what we get. We haven't committed our king yet, so maybe even queenside castling would be possible. It's going to depend a lot on what white goes for. Obviously, if white exchanges bishops on d6, that's good for us. It centralizes our queen. So once again, if we take here, white's going to play hg, and we're going to be resolving that tension and giving white the pressure on h7 that he wants. So we're going to let white think for a bit. If white can get in e4 here, that would be good, but it doesn't seem possible. Knight takes e4, knight takes e4, d takes e4. Okay, so white is resolving the tension himself, and I would like to play... Obviously, we can't play bishop takes. We could play c takes... Excuse me, queen takes, but I think I'm minded to just play b takes here and have a good pawn center, and that should help me weather the storm on the king side if it comes. Let's look once again at e4, knight takes, bishop takes is fine for me. So what can white do here? White's position is a little bit passive. How does he make it more active? Okay, so he just continues building up here. So I'm minded to play either knight c6 or knight d7. Knight d7 doesn't block the bishop in, so let's go with knight d7. This pawn is still not on pre because the knight's protecting. We may need to play h6 at some point. I'd like to know where white's going to put his king first before committing our own, but we're not that likely to want to castle on the queen's side. Okay, so you're really encouraging me to play h6 here. Let's just make sure there are no tactics if we knight takes f7. I don't see that. So I think we'll just play h6 now, kick the knight back. Maybe the knight... That doesn't seem likely. I think the knight's just coming back to f3. This is a move I'm happy to play. I'm going to be playing that quite often anyway. So I don't know if that achieves much. So one thing to think about is, can we just go with e5, threatening e4? e5, you obviously can't take it. What's your answer? Is it an e4? But then if you play e4, we can play d4. So we're really trying to grab the center now here, and the question is whether we can get away with it. We've given up, though. We've given up the f5 square. We were looking at that square, now we've given that up, and he jumps into that square. So that's okay. So we could continue our advance with e4. We can just sit tight here and get castled. I think castling looks fine. I think castling looks okay now. We have this strong center. And I think we're in pretty good shape here. Okay, so he does go with e4. Let's just have a look at taking that. Don't think taking that's going to achieve much, but so the most likely move here is just pushing on. Let's do that. Obviously, if c takes, we can play c takes because our Our queen is defended with the bishop, or you can play e10. Okay, it does go to this. I think this is just going to lead to an exchange of queens here on the c file. So we'll pre-move the recapture because that's going to be forced anyway. Now rook c1 now comes with tempo, but we have got control of this square, so this is okay. Now he attacks it again, so we probably want to play rook e8 here. Black's given up the defense of this pawn, so we can snap this pawn off now and trade these two pawns. But if we take that pawn, of course, we're losing our knight here. So this isn't. But we can play bishop takes. That's a possibility. So bishop takes c4 with the threat on the bishop. If knight takes here, we're just taking here, and if bishop takes, knight takes. I think that looks okay. You know, I think that looks all right. I'm going to go with that. Might backfire, but I think it looks okay. So if knight takes here, we can just take this knight, and I think I'd be surprised if black ends up worse. It's hard to see through all the complications. There's so many captures possible in a 10-minute game. But let's try. So if knight takes c5, we just win this piece here. So that's not an option. And the same is true with this knight here. There is an unprotected bishop on c7. So something like knight takes pawn, bishop takes bishop, winning a piece. Knight takes here. And then after knight takes here, then we lose this piece. But I think we're recapturing here, and we have got this knight takes g3 with a hit on the h1 rook as well. So black can save the bishop only by going bishop h4, but then, okay, so he's doing this. Now I think, well, let's just have a look here. If we take on e5, there's a trade. If we play, okay, so let's try this. Knight takes g3. Now, if knight takes d7, we have an intermezzo check with rook e8 check. And otherwise, I think we might win the knight on e5. So don't you have to play knight d7, otherwise you're losing material. Then we're going to recalculate there. Okay, so we have a choice here. If knight takes rook, knight takes rook, and then if we recapture, then it's all square. But if rook e8 check, then I think we win that rook for free. So I think this is right. And you can't move, so you're going up there. Okay, now can't we take this rook on h1 and then be the exchange up? That looks straightforward. Am I missing something even better? Perhaps there's a check here, which is actually not bad. That would force the king up to d3. We've also got a check here, which looks nice. That looks good. But then king d3, and then we can't take the rook because it's the knight on this. The knight is defending the rook here. So king, unless we have a follow-up there, we want to just grab this rook now, I think. We've also got knight here check and picking up the f2 pawn. I think we just want to grab this pawn now. Okay, so let's have a look. Rook here. We've got this check as well. Rook here. Where does this knight go? Hang on, if rook here, where is this knight going to? It has to go to c5. Okay. So knight c5 looks forced now, unless I'm missing something. We are the exchange up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns each. So we are a full exchange up. So we should be winning here. Okay, we've now got this check here. The king comes up, and that might be the end of the line. That's the problem. Let's have a look at rook here, hitting the knight again. The knight most likely goes to b3. Okay. So yeah, rook d5 looks interesting. If knight a6, that's fine. We can move the bishop. I think this looks good. So we're preparing perhaps to... Okay, so knight into block. Now that's taken that square away, but now we don't have the check. We can check here though, and that looks good because obviously we were happy to exchange pieces, and otherwise the king has to move away. So I like this check on a5. Once again, we'll pre-move the recapture. Okay, now we're hitting a2, so white doesn't have time to move the knight. Okay. Okay, so b2 is covered by the knight. This is a good knight for sure. So I think we don't want to let the rook onto the c file. So let's gain... Oh, we don't have a tempo here. Let's gain a tempo. Okay, I'm going to go with rook g5. And that might weaken these pawns a little bit if he plays g3. We might have some ways of hitting. Okay, so g3 is played. Now, what we're trying to avoid is letting this other rook out to try and keep control. Okay, rook g6. Okay, the knight comes in. Now I think just rook c6 now is good. Then we've got both open files taken. Ah, okay, you want to play in. But I mean, if we lose this d pawn and play something like rook c2, isn't that just fine for me? I think we can kick this knight away now. Okay, so the knight comes in. I have to be a little bit careful. I think I want this rook on here, because that way I don't have to worry about knight f6 check. If you take this pawn, like I said, I'm getting in on c2, which I think will be good for me. All right, so in we go with c2. That was our plan all along. I don't think you can protect the f pawn and the b pawn, so I have to choose one or the other. All right, well, that's fine. I think we're just going to, I mean, we could check first, but I think just here is fine. Take this pawn, we'll play hg. If f5, we can just check with the rook. So it's just time now that is okay. So I would have thought there's a check on c8, but it's not mate. So what about rook takes h2, rook c8 check, king to h7? Am I missing anything there? I don't think I am, because this after the king moves. Okay, so we could play rook takes knight, and that would probably also be winning. We've also got to check, or just if we come back, then the knight checks. So what about check first and then back? Check and then rook d8. Okay. Now the knight has to move because otherwise it gets taken. You could play g4. You could play g4 here. I'm sure black is winning. You do play g4. So let's get rid of... Hang on a second. No, I was just going to say this would be mate, but black has this. But hang on. If rook check, you have to play here. And then is this not mate? I think it is. I think it is. I think rook d6 is mate. Yeah. Yeah, this is mate, isn't it? Yeah, good. Okay, let's pause there and we'll take a look at the opening and any key points in the game. All right, so we can see this is called the Queen's Pawn Game Mason Attack. I've not heard of that before. 0 friends online. Can I get rid of that? All right, we can get rid of that. That's good. Okay, so... sorry, just go back. Okay, so most common move is knight f6. That's fine. e3 by white. That's fine. c5 immediately is the recommendation. We played e6. That's also the second most popular move, so no problems there. Knight d2 is most common here. Knight f3 is also played often. And once again, let's see bishop d6. That's, again, the second most common move, so this is a theme here. I'm never playing the best move, but the second best move. But it's okay. The bishop g3 by white is good. Castles now by black. What did we actually play? c5. I played b6. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, b6 is in there. It's a little bit down the line, but still being played some. We've got some games between some strong players here. So bishop d3. Yeah. And okay. Bishop e7. We've got a couple of games here. Okay, and now some more games. We're getting back into territory. Most popular move is castles, then knight b d7. We played an immediately c5. Yeah, that's played in a couple of games. Yeah, Eugenio Torre. So recognize the name there. And the c3 by white is the most common move, which is played. Knight c6, then most popular. We played queen c7, so this is a new move. Most common is knight c6 or castles kingside. Okay, so we're out of territory here. Okay, so we looked at the opening. I've just brought the game forward to this position here. I played e5 here to get more central presence with the pawn, but it did give away the f5 square. So I'm just wondering if in this position here we would be better off playing something like rook c8, so that if white if the c file does get opened up as in the game, we would have a bit more control, because it felt like, I think here my gut instinct is black must be at least equal, maybe a little bit better, but I'm not sure. We sort of lost control a little bit. So I think rook c8 might be a better move here. We'll check that in a moment. What else could we play? We could play also knight h5 to try and force bishop takes bishop. But I don't know if that's good. Then we have to waste the tempo, bring in the knight back. The other option is just to say, look, okay, let's get castled. So maybe castled is right here. I don't think we want to castle queenside here. So we will come back and look at this position with the engine. Just going forward then, this move gave away that square. I think black is still fine here. But then in this position here, I think we have to play d4. But I didn't like... Let's just see. Can we take with the e pawn? We could, but then I was worried about this pawn coming forward at some stage. But let's just have a look at that, what that looks like. I mean, you can't play pawn on now. But yeah, I don't know if this is that great. White will castle and this pawn might get to advance. That was my reason for not playing it. But as played, we had c takes, queen takes, bishop takes. I think in this position, if white just plays rook c1, I think it could get a bit awkward. We would play bishop d6 here. I mean, there's no entry square, but still, just feels not that great. So I'm not sure about this. I think I would play rook c1. Now let's see. White actually played this move, and then this allowed us bishop takes d4. So what could, assuming that's okay, which I think it was, what could white do instead? Well, we just said rook c1 would be fine. I think maybe castles is fine for white. So we'll look at this move, knight c4. Looked like possibly a mistake. Bishop takes here. Now let's just see what happens if bishop takes was played. What if knight takes e5 here? Just trying to capture. So if knight takes e5, bishop takes now, we can play knight takes, and that's all equal. If knight takes e5, knight takes e5. Once again, we could play either bishop takes here. It's getting complicated. So let's just have a look at this. Knight takes. And if we play knight takes, which I think makes sense because we want to get this knight off this attack here. And my idea was that then we would play this. So my idea for white is, let's play knight takes knight. Now if we recapture here, we lose this bishop. So, but also if we play bishop takes bishop, then we have knight takes knight check, recaptures, and white will most probably play this. And I don't think, no, I mean white's going to be in good shape here because he's attacking two pawns simultaneously. We can have a check here. Which dislodges the king. King comes up. Maybe taking this pawn would be difficult because of the pin, but I mean after something like this, Yeah, I don't know about taking this pin. The pin might be a little bit awkward because black can't use this square. So that's one possible line. We'll have a look at that in a moment. Okay, I've brought it back to this position. White's played knight takes e5 in this line we were looking at. And we were looking at bishop takes f5. What if we just simply go knight takes knight? Now, if bishop takes bishop in this position, then we can't we could play knight takes knight check and then take on g3. That's probably fine. We have to play bishop takes hg, and that position's probably equal. Oh wait, there's a rook hanging on AA. Let's just have a look at that. So in this position here, we've taken with check, so bishop takes. Now if bishop takes bishop, white has this move here, and we would have to take on check here. King takes, rook takes, and we have a pawn for the exchange, but that's not enough. White's winning there. So that's some of the things that can go wrong here for black. Yeah. So maybe here we have to play this, but I think then we lose a pawn, don't we? Yeah, we lose a. Oh well, let's just see. Maybe not. Bishop takes knight. Bishop takes, knight takes. Right here, if the knight moves, we have an uncomfortable discovered check. Then maybe, yeah, this is actually awkward. So it's a very interesting position. I think I'm gonna put the engine on in a moment. And just have a look. Let's just have a look here. Once we won the exchange, I think black kept reasonable control. I assumed that after knight takes out h1, we were never worse. White got a little bit of play, but I think we kept reasonable control. So we'll just put the engine on and have a look at those two crucial spots. Okay, so this was the first spot, and we played the move e5, and I wanted to see what the engine was suggesting. So it likes black a lot, so we were right that black is better here, but it wants to play bishop takes, h takes, and then get castled and say, okay, black is better due to the central presence. e5 is playable here, so it's giving up a little bit of advantage, but it's not too bad. It's still better for black. Bishop f5 was played, and now e4 it's saying is good for. So I played castles. So it wants the immediate e4 here. Let's think, why would that be? So e4 I'm looking at. e4 locks the bishop out. Is that part of the idea? Is there some threat here to play? I don't see why e4 is so good. Let's just see if we can understand that. e4. The knight is hit. Why not knight h5? Is it that the knight's lost? Why not knight g1, for example? Knight g1. Why is this so good? Trying to work out. Knight g1, bishop takes g3. Taking on d7, hg, and rook c8. Just have a look at this line here. Taking here, h takes, you can play the bishop takes hg, and then knight into e5, and it's just very awkward for white because black's center is just so massive. I think this is the issue here. I didn't even consider e4, which is a little frustrating. What was the move I played? I castled, and here it doesn't want to play the move I played. So my instinct that d4 was a bit dodgy seems to be right, but with just g6, keeping it simple, we force the bishop back. If g6 is played, what happens? The best move is to exchange. Queen takes, and castle's long here, and black is still a little better. We are winning a pawn here with d takes e4. Okay. It's actually interesting that after this move, I never really considered taking this. I felt it was defended enough time, but once black gives up this bishop for knight here, that's what g6 forces. It forces the bishop to get off the defense of this pawn, and then afterwards he can win the e-pawn. So that's interesting. So let's have a look. My move is this, and it actually is giving away a lot of advantage, as I suspected. White took, and then c takes is fine. Queen takes c7, bishop takes c7, and then rook c1 was the move I was wanting to play for white. It is there. It's the number one move, so that's good that I saw that. But actually black is still fine here with a slight edge. And this move here, it's really pleasing to me that I found bishop takes c4, and it looks like black is close to winning now after this knight c4. So we were again right that this was a mistake. Bishop takes c4. The best move is bishop takes c4, which was what white played. Knight takes c4 is the best move. That's what we played. And now best is bishop takes e5. Bishop takes e5, knight takes e5. He actually played knight f takes, which I assume is a real blunder. But if we play this instead, bishop takes, knight c takes, knight takes, knight takes, and black is a lot better here. This is similar to the line we looked at actually, where black plays rook e8 while the king is in the center, and if white moves this knight, then we're getting a devastating discovered check. And I think you can see if you look at the line that we're winning this rook on h1 anyway, because f e8, the knight moves, then we play knight g3, discovered check, and win the rook anyway. So it's actually, after white plays this move, it's hard to save the game for him. Let's just have a look at the actual game. Yeah, and this move here, knight f5, which was played, really is a blunder. Let's just see. Knight takes, and then the best move, knight g3, is what I played. Yeah, this, and then f v8. So it's good. We found the right line here. King moves. Now we have, it's pretty close between knight takes on h1 or knight e4 check. Knight e4 check seems to be slightly better with some sort of winning attack. That's interesting. We're winning, somehow we're winning this knight on d7. Let's just see how that's possible. Knight takes, king to e2. King c2 not moving into the discovered check looks more obvious. So let's have a look at king c2. Then rook here, attacking the knight. Now, is it simply this knight is trapped? This knight is trapped. There's nowhere to go. It can't go to c5. It can't go to b6. It can't go to e5. It could go to e5 actually. No, it can't because the bishop's on that square. So this is just picking up this knight here. So we're winning, instead of winning the exchange, knight for rook on h1, we're winning a whole piece here. So that's why that's better. Okay, fantastic. Thanks for watching. This was Tim, and we'll be back with some more rapid games soon.